Hello, dear listeners. Today, I want to take you on a journey full of legends, power, glory, and ultimately, collapse. A story that begins in myth, grows through blood and politics, expands with the sword, and eventually crumbles under the weight of corruption and civil war. This is the story of ancient Rome. A civilization said to have been founded in 753 BCE by Romulus, according to legend. But that was only the beginning. In the old tales, Romulus and Remus were two infants abandoned on the banks of the Tiber River. A she-wolf found them, saved their lives, and raised them. Later, conflict arose between the brothers. Romulus killed Remus and became the first king of Rome, founding a city that would become the heart of Western civilization for centuries. Rome was initially a monarchy. 7 kings ruled in succession. These kings built the city, raised its walls, established religious festivals, and laid the foundations of law. But eventually, the last king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud, ruled with arrogance and cruelty. The people, weary of tyranny, overthrew the monarchy in 509 BCE and established the Roman Republic. This marked the beginning of an extraordinary political experiment. The Republic was a system where power was divided among the elite, the Senate, and 2 annually elected consuls. Though it appeared that the people had a voice, real power was held by the aristocrats, known as the patricians. In contrast, the common people, or plebeians, had to struggle for years to gain their rights. Meanwhile, Rome began a period of relentless expansion. It first battled neighboring cities in Italy, then moved south to confront the Greek colonies. But one of Rome's greatest challenges came from a fierce rival, Carthage. The Punic Wars, especially the Second Punic War with the legendary commander Hannibal, became some of the bloodiest and most critical conflicts in history. Hannibal shocked Rome by crossing the Alps with his war elephants and a fierce army. But eventually, the brilliant Roman general Scipio Africanus turned the tide by attacking the heart of Carthage, securing victory for Rome. With Carthage defeated and new territories conquered, Rome emerged as a global superpower. But this power came at a price. Wealth and gold poured into the city from east and west, but inequality grew deeper. The aristocrats seized vast lands, while ordinary farmers became landless and impoverished. Within this growing discontent, the voices of protest began to rise. 2 brothers, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, tried to change the situation through social reforms, redistributing land, lowering the price of grain, and limiting the power of the Senate. But both were assassinated by the aristocrats. Their deaths marked the beginning of a series of political crises. In the 1st century BCE, generals like Marius and Sulla built armies loyal to themselves instead of the Republic. They dragged Rome into brutal civil wars. And soon after, a figure would rise who would change everything. In the midst of political chaos, a man emerged whose name still echoes through history, Julius Caesar. He was a brilliant general, a clever politician, and a powerful orator. By conquering Gaul, modern-day France, Caesar gained massive popularity among his soldiers and the people. But for the aristocrats and the Senate, his rising influence was a serious threat. In 49 BCE, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his army, an act of war against the Republic. He famously said, "The die is cast," and marched on Rome, taking the city without resistance. After winning the civil war, Caesar declared himself dictator for life. But that absolute power would also seal his fate. In 44 BCE, during a Senate session, a group of senators, including Brutus, whom Caesar deeply trusted, stabbed him to death. The Republicans hoped that by killing Caesar, they could restore freedom to Rome. But instead, it sparked a new chain of brutal civil wars. Eventually, Caesar's political heir and adopted son, Octavian, later known as Augustus, defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra. In 27 BCE, Octavian formally declared the beginning of the Roman Empire. He took the title princeps, or first citizen, but in truth, he became the first emperor of Rome. With the rise of Augustus, a new era of stability and prosperity began, known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. For nearly 2 centuries, the empire enjoyed relative calm, expansion of trade, construction of roads, flourishing architecture, and a vibrant cultural life. Emperors like Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius defined Rome's golden age. But that glory wouldn't last forever. After Marcus Aurelius died in 180 CE, the empire entered a period of instability. Weak emperors, internal revolts, corruption, and economic strain shook Rome's foundations. In the 3rd century CE, the crisis intensified. In just 50 years, over 20 emperors rose and fell, many by assassination or military coups. Meanwhile, invading tribes from the north and east, such as the Goths, Vandals, and Huns, pressed hard against Rome's borders. To manage the chaos, Emperor Diocletian, in the late 3rd century, divided the empire into eastern and western halves for easier governance. The Eastern Roman Empire, centered in Constantinople, would later become the Byzantine Empire and last for another 1,000 years. But the Western Empire, with Rome as its capital, remained weaker and more vulnerable. In 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire fell for good when its last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the barbarian general Odoacer. Rome, born of myth, now lay buried beneath its own ruins. But its influence never died. In language, in law, in architecture, and in the soul of Western civilization, Rome still lives.